YouTube. We always have to activate that. There we go. So if I'm correct, YouTube should be live at the moment. Yes, I see myself on YouTube. It's always a weird experience. So let's wait for the YouTube chat to say if the audio is okay, because we always change a little bit, and we try to get it even better for you guys every single time. So Anna-Week will confirm if the audio is working. I'll disable that one. So Anna-Week, is the audio working? Okay, great. So welcome to another episode of Digital Classroom. Are you guys ready? Here we go. Okay, and there we are. Hey guys, today Digital Classroom from our home, as you can see here. Now, what is it about today? Now, one of the most asked questions is often like, how do I approach my images? How do I select those images? Where do I look for? And most of all, how do I create the look that I get into my images? And in all honesty, it's not that hard actually. I do most of my work, believe it or not, and I'm holding it here, on the iPad Pro at the moment. And of course I'm still using my laptop, so I thought today it would be cool to just show you what my workflow is, how I work with those images. And then I thought, you know what, you guys know my images, you already know how they look, so why use my own images? So I asked all the Patreons, like, hey guys, send in some images and I'm gonna retouch them live during our broadcast on YouTube. And as an extra bonus, I'm also gonna do it for the people that normally don't do the portfolio reviews. Let me explain that. So we have this Patreon page, so let me just open that up on the bottom. And when you go to Patreon, you pay about $1 a month, or 5 or 10 or whatever you want to do. And in exchange for that, we add you to our secret Facebook group, and you can discuss stuff with each other, you can post images, and I always try to respond within 24 hours if there is any question. But also, once a month, certain people are allowed to send in images, and I will retouch those images. I will tell people what I would do differently, how to light it differently, how to watch for example, reflections, and that kind of stuff. And it's really intense. Normally those videos are ranging from 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I'm not going to do it this long today, but I did want to show you guys a little bit how we approach Patreon and how many tips we share there. So maybe it's nice for you guys to join us on Patreon. Again, it's only $1 a month and you see everything. And I believe starting from 5 or 10 euros a month, you can also send in your images, 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you want, and we'll make a video retouching them. And we have some really cool other news. Now, as you guys know, I love shooting tethered. And what is shooting tethered? Tethered is literally connecting your camera to a computer. And we've been doing this for, I think, over 15 years. I kid you not. I started with tethering with that little yellow cable, you know, what you put into the side of your camera, and then you connect it to, at that point for me, a CRT TV in the studio, and we saw an image. And that was, yeah, it sucked. But it worked, you know. You saw what was coming in, and I was mesmerized by that. I was like, this is awesome. Why doesn't anybody do it? Why doesn't everybody do this? Then when I got medium format, we actually started using IQwire for tethering, which was absolutely awesome because now I had software capture one. Still very, very immature, but at that point it did work great for getting those images in. And at that moment I just knew this is it. This is the future. This is how we want to do it. Now fast forward, IQwire was great. IQwire 800, not so good because it did disconnect very easily, and then came USB. Now with USB we had a problem. The ports were really, really small, and they were getting smaller and smaller. And at one point I said to Anna-Week, you know, Zoom, we're just going to put in 2 wires and that's it. And it's terrible because the ports get damaged. Now, of course, let's fast forward everything. What was the most heard question that we got over the years about tethering? Frank, we want 10-meter tether cables. Well, today I am very proud to introduce to you guys a new brand for the Dutch market, and maybe also for you. Let's take a look. Now, you know the brand IQwire, right? And I'm proud to announce that starting this week, we are the official distributor for IQwire in the Netherlands. So we are going to deliver the 5-meter cables, and we're going to deliver the, of course, 10-meter cables. Now the cool thing about the 10-meter cables is they have inline boosters. And let me just show you that very quickly. So we have a package over here. Let me open it up. And here we have the 10-meter cable. And as you can see, we have really nice boosters there. And angled connectors, also something that we heard a lot from people. They wanted angled connectors. The nice thing also is that every booster has an extra connector for power if you would need it. Most people don't need it. And as you can see, this is 10 meters. So it's a really small package. It's really lightweight. You get a Velcro strap attached to it. And that's not all. So because it's a new brand, we also wanted to do something really special for everybody. So we literally went and we got this device. And this is the first device actually with my own name on it, which we also helped to make. This is a fiery red cable block. It's ARCA compatible, and what you do is you mount it under the camera and the cable goes through, and it just looks absolutely neat and nice. And you don't damage your port if you stand on the cable. The nice thing is, the cable block normally retails for 35 euros, and you can get it on our shop. So let me just show you that very quickly. So you can see where you can get it. And for the 10-meter cable, believe it or not, starting today, if you order the 10-meter cable from a dealer or from us, you get the cable block absolutely for free. So with the 10-meter cables, you get the tether block for free. And that's absolutely awesome because that actually makes the package totally complete. Okay, but enough about that. Let's do our stuff for today. So let's switch over to the iPad. And let me just show you some of the images that we got in. Okay, so I asked the Patreons send in some images. Now sometimes the iPad drops out. Don't worry about it at that moment. We'll just grab it very quickly. And that also means that we get back really right away. Okay. So the images came in, and the first thing I asked, like, okay, send me the image retouched and send me the image without retouching. And let me also check the chat, by the way. Okay, and a week says the cable is red. Yeah, on the video it looks a little bit like another color, but it is fiery red. Okay, so I always ask people, like, send me the original image and send me the retouched version. So let's do it. And I'm doing it blind, so I don't know who shot the images, unless, of course, there's a name in there. So this is the original image. No, sorry, this is a JPEG. And this is the RAW file. Okay, now the first thing I do when I look at an image is I look at composition. And I love images that are shot in landscape mode. For one reason or another, when it's shot in portrait, I just doesn't feel... I feel the image can't breathe enough. It's somehow limiting. It's only about the model. And I just love to see a little bit on the side. But I hate it when people leave a lot of space everywhere. So let's see how the composition is here. And that's pretty good, right? There's not a lot of space on top. If I would retouch it, well, maybe I would just do it a little bit more like this. So a little bit closer. But that's about it. So let's go back to the raw version and let's see what I can do with it. So this is the retouched version from the guy who sent it in. So let's go back. And let's go for the raw version. Okay, first things first. First I'm going to make the composition, and I always do it in free. Now, believe it or not, you can do it in crop mode, but you know, most of the time nowadays we actually shoot for internet, and most of the images, it doesn't really matter how they look for the crop. You can do 16 by 9, you can do 235 by 1, it doesn't really matter anymore. Now, when you shoot for print, do be very, very careful, because then it becomes really important that you, of course, shoot for the aspect ratio that your client dictates for you. So if they say we need a 4:3 image, you better make sure that it's a 4:3 image, otherwise it will just cost you your client, and you don't want that. Okay, now, I always believe in using a light meter. For the very simple reason your exposure is spot on. When I look at this image, I go like, I think it's pretty spot on. I don't know for sure, of course, but it looks pretty cool. And that means that in your workflow, you don't have to go to exposure, like for example. No, it doesn't have to, because it's already great. Now, when I look at an image like this, the first thing I look at is what's the model wearing. And I see that she's wearing a beautiful coat, but I'm actually not seeing that coat. Do you know what I mean? There is no detail in the coat. It's pretty dark. Even if when you zoom in, you can still that there's a little bit detail, but for me that's not enough. I want to see more. So let's open up those shadows. Well, when you open up the shadows, you can literally see that beautiful dress coming up. Even when I open up the exposure, there we go. That's a beautiful dress. But hey, that's not the way to do it, right? Now, when we shoot an image like this, what I would actually do is use one bigger softbox or a strobe aimed at the ceiling and just bounce that in about 2 or 3 stops or maybe even 4 stops under the main light. I call that technique a light in light, and it actually means that we give a little bit more light on the dress to make the dress stand out. And that technique works like a charm. Now, of course, you can also solve it in Photoshop, right? But also in Lightroom. Now, thanks to Adobe, we have a lot of stuff here with local adjustments. So go for plus. And I always tell this also to the Patreons, I'm going to do this really, really rough. Because I don't want you guys there sitting for 15 minutes if it can be done in 1. So look at the techniques. Don't judge me on the end result, because, well, that will be very, very cruel. So let's just, the end result will be very cruel, of course. So let's just go here with a brush. And I'm mostly going over the darker areas of the image. And of course, again, you guys can do it much better. You can also do a selection for black. But in my case, call me old-fashioned, I still want to have total control. So I often do it myself. But nowadays with Lightroom and also with Photoshop, of course, you can do color ranges and it's just absolutely awesome. Oh, and by the way, make sure you stay till the end because I'm also going to show you my workflow in Luminar. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that later. Okay, so this is good enough. Okay, so go for your light, of course. Open up the shadows first and then open up the exposure. There we go. Add a little bit of contrast to bring that back. Add the exposure, add a little bit of contrast, exposure, contrast. And here you balance this. You see this? Of course you can just open up contrast and exposure, but just do it step by step. Because if you do it step by step, you see what you're doing, and at that point it just works better. Okay, done. Okay, cool image. Really like it. But of course we can do more, right? Now, one of the things that is really important in my work, but also in a lot of other people's work, is actually color grading or color tinting or whatever you want to call it, Instagram the heck out of a shot. Now, for me, it means that color evokes emotion. So when I see something blue, I immediately think cold or distant. When I see something red, it's warm. And this is something I use a lot in workshops and live streams. I'm not going to go much into that, but color evokes emotion. So color is really important in a shot. When I look at something that comes straight out of the camera, for me it's often a little bit too perfect. It doesn't really engage with me. It's like, yeah, it's there, but not. So let's try to solve that. Let's go for color. Now, of course, color temperature you can change, but I wouldn't do that. For the very simple reason, color temperature is more like the perfect balance between the grayscale, and you shouldn't touch that, to be honest. Unless, of course, you want to. It's great, so let's just try it a little bit. And as you can see here, you don't end up immediately with something that looks cool. Actually, you're getting yourself into trouble because now the skin doesn't look right. Now the background looks nice, but the skin, you try this, and as you can see here, that doesn't work. Okay, so what can you do to tint your images? In Photoshop, you can use exposure software, for example, or DxO, or Luminar, or whatever tinting software you like. But in Lightroom, you actually have the same kind of options. It's just a little bit different. So let me show you, and a little bit more limited. The first thing is color mix. Now in color mix, it's actually all the colors that are available in the color mixer. Now we personally only see 3 colors, red, green, blue. Those are the primary colors. Now every color has 3 coordinates, the X, the Y and the big Y. Hue, saturation and luminance. And luminance is that big Y. That's, by the way, also in printers when you see CMYK, the K is actually black or key. And it's not really black, but it determines the luminance of the color. Now what you have to remember is if you open up the saturation for a color, you are in chance of clipping a channel, meaning it doesn't look right. Let me put it that way, all detail will be gone. It's the same like clipping your highlights. Now if you lower the luminosity on the other way, you also add the saturation, but you don't clip the channels. And that's something that's really powerful. And there will be images in here that shows you that. But when you look at the whole images, so we have RGB, that's where all the images live. So that's your TV, that's your monitor, but that's not print. For print we use the secondary colors, cyan, magenta, yellow and key in that case. So those secondary colors are connected to the primary colors. And that's actually what you see here in your color mixer. And there's a lot of colors in between, like for example, orange is not really one of the secondary or primary colors, but it's in between red and yellow. And then you have green, cyan, magenta, and of course all the others. So let's start with this image. If I only do color mixing, I can't do a lot. I can change something like, okay, let's give a little bit more red saturation, lower the luminance of red, so the lips get a little bit more. Let me zoom in so you can see. The lips will get a little bit more. That's the weird thing. You see that? I changed the luminance, and that means that I actually also changed the saturation. You don't really do it, by the way. You just take the luminance out, and it makes the color deeper. But in all honesty, there's not a lot to do in this image with this. And that's because when I use the color mixer, it actually means that those colors have to be available inside the image. And what if there are no blue colors? I can't manipulate blue if there is no blue, right? So let me go to blue. Let me turn up the saturation. Yeah, there's a little bit of blue in a dress, but this is not what we want. This is not spectacular. So for a long time, this was actually where Lightroom a little bit stopped. You could do something else. You could, for example, go for light and go for curves. This is awesome. Now I can go for red. And I can actually say, okay, take red out of the shadows, give it a little bit back in the skin tones. Oh, sorry, a little bit back in the skin tones and highlights. There we go. And then, for example, with blue, just pump that all the way up and take it down again. And you have something a little bit cross-processed, but hey, let's be honest, this is not what you want. So let's remove that also. Okay, cool. So, no curves. Let's go back to color. And a few updates ago, there was this new thing, and it immediately popped up, color grading, and I was going like, ooh, now we're talking. This is what I love. Now, why do I love this? Now, to give you a little bit of a backstory about where I come from, we come, of course, from the Netherlands, but where I really come from is a background of movie lovers, and especially calibrations. I'm an ISF-trained calibrator. That means that we calibrate according to the standards for normal cinema or home cinema. So the 6500 degrees, the CMS, color management system, and whatnot more. But we also love in our studio to create tutorials for you guys and also videos. Now with the vlog, I'm also a little bit on the safe side. I want to do it a little bit more rough, like it's really there. But for the tutorials, we sometimes try to do it a little bit more interesting and also add some color grading there, here and there, and also for our own videos. Now, color grading in video is actually very, very usual. Now, think about, for example, Titanic. Why is Titanic a little bit brownish? Well, because it's in the past, right? Think about Saving Private Ryan. Why was everything so staccato at D-Day? Why did you see everything so sharp? And why did a lot of people throw up? That's because they used a very, very high shutter speed, a really narrow looking film quality with contrast that was really narrow and compressed, and they actually threw the film in the water to make it deteriorate. And the end result was that people literally threw up in the cinema. Mission succeeded, right? But most of all, it was the high shutter speed, because the high shutter speed made even my stomach just turn around because it looked so weird and so juddery. But it worked for that. And the same thing when you look at the new Batman movie, The Batman. Did you watch that movie? Did you just love the whole color grading? Did you see those silhouettes from Catwoman and Batman on top of that building with a little bit of blue from the back, and you could just see those details? A lot of people think that they just put a camera there with sundown. No. They think about everything, methodology. I hope I pronounced that correct, but they look at it in every single fine detail. And that's color grading. And sometimes color grading you will hardly see, but it's there. Now the next time you watch a movie on HBO Prime, HBO or Prime or Netflix or Hulu or whatever you watch, just look for color grading and you will find out that it's almost everywhere. Now when you look at CNN, there's no color grading there. It's sometimes the outside images are different than the inside images, but that's, you know, it's a news sender, a news broadcaster. But if you really look at movies, you will see that every single movie uses music and uses color grading to give you a certain mood in your image, or sorry, in your video. So let's do the same thing. So let's zoom out again. Miss. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the shadows. Now in this case, it's a little bit of a royalty image, it looks like, right? So I think a little bit cold in the shadows because they will oppress the lower people, whatever. So let's go for a little bit blue in the shadows. Ooh, you see that? You can turn it around. I love Adobe for this. Okay, great. Let's go for the midtones and let's also go towards blue. Yes, let's pump the luminance up or down. Let me see what I like. Let's do a little bit of blending and just balance the two together. Ooh, I really like this. And for the highlights, I want a little bit red. Oh, not too much. There we go. Maybe a little bit towards magenta. Maybe a little bit this way. So you can move this part that way, and then that part you can twist it. It works like a charm. Okay, I think this is okay. It's not spectacular yet, but it's also a pretty simple image, and this is why I took this one first. So even with an image like this, before, first close that. So before and after, you already see that it's a little bit different, right? Now let's finish that up with a little bit more contrast. And let's protect the highlights just a little bit. There we go. Shadows maybe a little bit more open. I love it. Let's go for effects. Let's give it a little bit of texture and clarity. And just give it some vignetting. Ooh, really like this. Okay, let's zoom in. Now when I look at the face, this is one of the parts that is always, I think, the hardest for people to do. Like, okay, what do I do with the face of a model? Do I Photoshop the heck out of it? Do I make it like a Barbie doll? And how do I do that? And why does the skin glow afterwards? What? Yeah, skin retouching can be very, very difficult. And in all honesty, when you ask certain professionals, they will make it almost appear that you have to go to Mount Mordor at midnight during a red moon with a dragon's tail and of course the feather of a dodo, and then drip it into ogre blood or whatever, and then do your retouching. But it's not that hard. Most people that I know, and they won't tell you, but most people, they will just use plugins, like for example Imagenomic Portraiture, or the new, and that's what I want to show you at the end, the new Skylum Luminar AE, because what they do with skin is just, it's insane, it's amazing. But if you don't want to spend money on something and you already have Lightroom, watch this, because you can actually do some pretty cool stuff in Lightroom. So let's go for a local adjustments. Let's go for plus. Let's do brush. Let's make it small to 8. Okay. Let's see. Let me do it soft. Oh, sorry, that was my mistake. Nice and soft. There we go. Now the cool thing about Lightroom, and I don't know if you guys know that, this is a little bit more detaily. Now when you zoom in, you see the brush adjusts. So you don't have to go back to 8 or 6 or 10. No, just zoom out and the brush will become bigger. It will just adjust to what you do. Okay, so let me just show you guys what it does. And I intentionally leave some parts, for example above the eyes, I leave that open. So now almost cover, let's also cover the nose and the mouth, why not? Because then I can show you how you return. Okay, go for effects, and now what you do, first draw down the texture all the way down, clarity all the way down, pick dehaze and go up, go down, go up, go down. And now when you lost track of how it looked or how it's supposed to look, so go up, go down, go up, go down, now you're going to find the contrast that you like. Ooh, I really like this. How far is that to 0? -6. Now you do the same thing for clarity. You go up until you don't see any unevenness in the skin. There we go. And now with texture, you're going to bring back detail until you like it. There we go. Okay, done. Now compare this to the original. You see above the eyes I left it in, and underneath I didn't. So the skin becomes a lot nicer. Now of course you can still use your healing brush. For example, if you go like, oh, I don't like a part there, you just go with your healing brush and just go over that and you just move this to where you want. Perfect. Let's go here. Nice. Let's take some out here. That's cool. and maybe refine that shadow area just a little bit. There we go. Okay, before and after. So it doesn't have to take a long time, and you can always use your eraser again to get the mouth clear. So let's go to local adjustments. Let's do the eraser here, and let's just bring the mouth back, parts of this, and maybe even paint in now also above the eyes. There we go. And also here. And of course the model also has a neck, most. There we go. Great. Now when I'm here, the next thing I want to address is the eyes. Now the eyes are the mirror of the soul, right? We all know that expression, but is that really true? Yes, it is. Because the eyes will actually show you a little bit of sparkle in your image. And over here, I think the eyes are really, really dark. And I miss one of the reflections actually. Now the reflection, it's going to be an easy solve. Let's go for your, let's first press done. Let's go for your healing brush. And let's change that to clone. I'm going to make it really small. And I'm going to actually clone. Let me see, I always mess this up. There we go. There we go, that's part one. Easy, right? And that's because there was a little bit of, actually, of reflection in that eye. And I think that's really, really important, guys. If you see that reflection there, take it from there and maybe just lower the opacity a little bit to make it darker. In this case I don't, but that's often a little bit more natural. But when you don't see that reflection, always remember that eyes are not flat, they are a little bit curved, right? So when the light hits one eye here, it doesn't always mean that the other eye is hit at exactly the same point. This is something that you will learn by experience, but just getting the lens flare, oh sorry, the lens the light reflections, oh my, to get them exactly at the same spot sometimes works, but most of the time it isn't really natural because they will be a little bit different. But if you are in doubt, just place them at exactly the same point, and otherwise just look at another image where you retouched, or which you didn't retouch, but where you do see the catch lights, and at that point you know where they can be. By the way, if there are questions in between, feel free to ask. We have the chat open on YouTube. I don't know if Enoweek is checking the, how do you call that, Facebook, but I'm checking YouTube. Okay, let me do another one, plus brush. Let's make the brush really small in this case, and let's just go over the eyes here, and here, and here. Okay, and let's just open up. Don't do too much. Okay, let's tone down the highlights just a little bit and just open up the shadows. A little bit of exposure extra. There we go. Really nice. Let's go for effects. Let's just give it a little bit of clarity and structure. And you can also use dehaze. Okay, the only thing I now have to do is make sure that underneath we don't have any reflections left. And there you go. Just looks a little bit nicer, I think, instead of too dark. Okay, so, but this was a simple image. Let's go for a little bit more advanced. And this is something that I love to do, just change everything around, right? And again, if you have any questions, it's a live broadcast, feel free to ask. There's always a rerun, but then you can't ask any questions. Well, you can in the comments, but I can't answer them live. That would be weird. Twilight Zone. Okay, so this is the shot. Okay. This is the retouched version. Let's see if it's level. Pretty much, yeah, great. Okay, now one of the things that I found interesting when I started doing portfolio reviews, and also when I looked at my own work, was that although the images look great, often there's something missing where you go like, I don't know, I just don't go, oh wow, look at this. Most of the people will go like, hey, nice image, nice surroundings. And I have the same thing with this one. I can't really pinpoint what's wrong, because there is nothing really wrong. But it's also not an image where you go like, wow, look at this, wow, amazing. So let's go for the raw version. As you can see, probably also a light meter user, or very lucky. So let's first protect some highlights in the head. Great. Okay, that isn't If it would have affected the rest of the image, then I would have done it with local adjustments. Again, if you do this professionally or if you do this at home, please do this with local adjustments. But I just want to show you what Protect the Highlights does for the head. As you can see here, it just brings back all the detail. Now when I look at my model, I think she's pretty dark, right? A little bit too dark. So this is what I'm going to do with local adjustments. I'm going to take local adjustments. I'm going to take a huge brush, actually about this. And I'm just going to go over my model. Nothing more. And a little bit in between, that's it. Now go for light, go for shadows, a little bit of exposure maybe, a little bit of contrast, a little bit of exposure. You see, I always balance those two together. Then I can just pump it up and always keep them in balance. Nice. Done. I look at the difference. There we go. Model already jumps out a lot more. Let's make that even better. Go for effects. And this is one of the oldest tricks in the books. And it's so amazing. Just go for vignetting. And there you go. How about drawing really attention to your model? Yeah, that's way too much. Let's just open it up a little bit. There we go. This also for me brings in more of that magic, of that mystique of what's going on there. It's a weird situation, right? Compared to the original one. Okay, so we're already getting there. Let's give it a little bit more texture and a little bit more clarity. There we go. I love clarity. Let's use a little bit of dehaze for that nice subtle toning. And there you go. Now for me this already looks better, but we're not there yet. Remember when I told you guys about color tinting? Well, this is one of those images where you can literally go berserk. Let's go for color. Let's go for color grading. In the shadows I want a little bit more warmth. Let's make it a little bit full. In essence you're already there. Look at the difference. You see, just a little bit of change actually changed the whole scene from something that was okay, cool, but it's shot during maybe next door, to something that really go, ooh, that's interesting. Now it may or may not be your preference. That's something completely different. I just want to show you that by changing the colors and changing also the perspective of the viewer towards the model creates a totally different look and makes it, in my opinion, way more interesting. But I would love to hear your opinion about that, of course. Give it a little bit more vibrance, a little bit saturation, and you can do that, or you can do the other way and make it even more mysterious. How about this? Or maybe a little bit like this. You can do whatever you want. Okay. Now if you want the blue to stand out a little bit more, which I do, go for color mix, because now we are talking about a real color mixer. You can select it of course, but in this case let's do it fast. Let's do saturation and EU. And let's change the luminance. That's only part of the dress, of course. There we have the real dress. There we go. Change saturation, lower the luminance. There we go. And now you also see, and this is vital, why you should always use a light meter, but also why you should buy a light meter that has a spot meter. And I go back to the original image. You don't really see that I blew out, or the photographer blew something out. But when I go here, now it's very, very obvious when I zoom in that all the highlights in the dress are gone. And that's a shame because I can't get them back. You can of course go into Photoshop and clone it. But in all honesty, that's not really something you want to do because that costs you a lot of time. And in the end, it will just look fake. So let me see if we can try something. Let's go for another brush. Let's make that really small. Let's just paint in the highlights here. Let's see if I can recover them. Probably not, because they're totally gone now, you see? So I can't do anything with that. Oh, I can get a little bit back by using exposure, but now you have to zoom really in. You see how much work this is compared to just using a light meter? So let me see if I want to repair this. I have to go all in. I have to take it out here and only save the highlights. It's not going to be pretty. There we go. It's doable. But again, it's not something that you want to do with all your images, especially not if you're stressed for time, or if you also want to play some video games or spend time with your family. Also important. But you can get some back, but as you can see here, it's just better to shoot it right on the spot. And sometimes you can't. Well, that's a shame. Then use something like a blocker or a flag to get those highlights out. And yes, it's a lot of work, but in the end it will really, really pay off. Trust me for that. Okay, and let's go for the next shot. This is the retouched version. Okay, first of all, when I see this image, and Dan is Dan is without a doubt one of the guys on Patreon that I love to see progress. I love to see his work, and I know with Dan I can be rough. I can be really, really rough. I know some people can't take it, and they go like, "Ooh, that's a little bit rough." But with Dan, I know I can. Oh, with Dan I can. So let's do it. Dan, you know this is not personal, right? When I look at the model, it looks like she's bored. It looks like she's just waiting for the bus. She was to Comic-Con, she's totally flabbergasted by everything she saw, she's tired now, and there's this one photographer who goes like, "Hey, I'm Dan, I want to take a picture," and she just leans over and go like, "Yeah, okay, do it." Again, this is 100% positive, but I strongly believe that if you don't tell people this, they will keep shooting it like this, because it's something that, when I look back at my first images that I took of a model, I fell in exactly the same trap. Exactly the same trap. All my models looked like they were waiting for the bus. Actually, at one point I just told my models, don't pose, just act like you're waiting for the bus. Now when I look at all those images back, I go like, oh my god, there's absolutely no, it's terrible. But at that time I thought it was amazing because I looked at styling, I looked at lighting, and I looked at so much more. At one point, when you understand your lighting and you don't have to think about it anymore, you can start thinking about totally different stuff, like for example expression, posing, motion, props in your shot. So then, great shot, love the styling, love the backdrop, but expressions, work on it, because that's really important. Now for retouching wise, I think she needs more light in her eyes, and I think she needs more shadow detail. So let's open that up here. As you can see, it's doable. So let's go for the raw file. Let's do my work. As you can see here, by the way, Dan already retouched it a little bit with toning or a color, which I absolutely like. I think you did great. So let's enhance that a little bit. Okay, first of all, the crop. I want to go much closer than Dan did. Although I do like this. So I do like the sides. So let's keep that in. Okay, great. First of all, skin. Let's do that first. Let's get that out of the way. So do a brush. Brush. Again, I'm doing it relatively rough. And I'm only doing the face, by the way. I don't know. Let's do it right. It's only a small part. Okay. Nice. Okay, go for effects. Texture all the way down, clarity all the way down, start with dehaze. Okay, start to build dehaze, there we go, love it. Clarity back, and structure back. And there we go, love the skin. Okay, new brush. Zoom in, make it really small, smaller, there we go. Go through the eyes. Oh, I do see cat slides, very, very small. Go for light, go for exposure, because her eyes are really dark, so I don't think it's really gonna... Oh, there we go. Shadows are very, very powerful. Okay, maybe open it up a little bit more. Oh, sorry. Great. Let's take the brush, the eraser. Let's just make it a little bit more natural. Yeah, I don't like this at all, but let's keep it that way. Nice. Okay, done. Okay, eyes are a little bit better now. I like the cat slides there, so that's okay. Don't change that because it was shot probably with natural lighting. Okay, let's first do our proper setup. So let's add a little bit of contrast. Let's tone on the highlights. Let's add a lot of shadows. Pump up contrast, pump up exposure slightly. There we go. Protect the highlights a little bit more. Great. Go for effects, go for texture, because I love that in that metal. Go for clarity. Nice. Now I have to be honest, with texture and clarity in this case, because I want to bump it all the way up, I'm actually going to do it differently. I'm going to do a big brush, like a huge brush. I'm going to paint in the whole picture, believe it or not. There we go. I'm going to take out everything that has skin. There we go. And maybe a little bit on the hands. Don't forget the hands, because that can look so ugly. And again, I'm doing it really rough. And now I'm going to do all the way up, all the way up. Look at that. That looks awesome. Done. Okay. And I think for this image, we really want the spotlight on our model, right? So let's go first for effects and let's go for vignetting. There we go. But that's not enough. Let's go for a big brush. Let's go for all the way up. And let's just paint in the face. Let's open that up with exposure just a little bit. There we go. A little bit of contrast. Those always work together with me. Protect the highlights just a little bit. Open up the shadows. Make sure that it doesn't overexpose. There we go. Nice. Really like this. Okay, now let's go for color adjustments again. Let's go for color grading. In this case, I love the futuristic look, so let's go for really blue shadows, but deep blue, like really deep. There we go. Let's go for blending, and let's balance that just a little bit. There we go. Go for the midtones. There we go. And for the highlights, maybe just a little bit. Nice. Love it. Okay. Cool. In essence, different image, like it too, right? Now, of course, in Photoshop you can use plugins, but also in Lightroom you can use something called presets. Now, if I like this, I can actually store this as a preset, and I already created some presets, of course. Now, you can buy those presets on our web shop. Let me show you the link for that. There we go. Now you don't see me anymore, so that's better, right? Now, when you go for presets, I always advise guys, don't buy the presets from 199 euros, who are now only 19.99, because those kinds of discounts actually destroy the value of what you offer, I think. My presets are always offered between 10 and 15 euros. And the reason is very simple. Presets are just preset, guys. Don't do anything mystique about it, or don't say that you created something that was unique. Some people do, all due respect. But most of the presets packs are just people that just change some sliders. And it's exactly the same thing that I do. And I think for 10 or 15 euros you get a great preset pack. I believe there are over 70 different looks. And you can just use it to build your own looks. Like for example, how about a darker mood, or a fashion look, or a start, or old fashion, or almost instant, moody. I have all these presets, and I have them also for Luminar, I have them for Capture One. And they're all different, but they all go from the same think pattern, like creating cinematic looks. Something that you would use in the cinema, or in other words, for a movie. And some are really extreme and some are a little bit less. And some also are designed, of course, to work with, for example, the use of gels or the use of high contrast lighting. So it won't work on all. As you can see here, there's so many options. So you don't have to be stuck with Lightroom as your whole program. You can actually do it very fast with presets. So you don't have to do it over and over again. Okay, let's go back. Let's just cancel this. Okay, I love this image. Now, the next image. Okay. I like it, but it lacks impact for me. And that's mostly due to the raised blacks. Now, you see this happening a lot in images. Somehow they raise the blacks and it looks a little bit faded. And some people really like that. Personally, for me, it's not a look that I like. So let's go for the original. Ooh, that I like a lot more. But I also have a problem with this shot. And this is what I meant when I started. This shot is shot in portrait mode. Landscape mode will give it so much more breathing room. So I would highly recommend shooting something like this in landscape mode. But let's try something. Okay, let's make it more impactful. Let's just close up. We need that. And I would love to extend the and the canvas a little bit. Okay, same here. The face, I'm not going to do skin retouching now again, don't worry. But I think the whole image is a little bit on the dark side. So let's open it up. Let's add some contrast. And now you will see a shadow on the backdrop. Now, the shadow on the backdrop is not necessarily something that's wrong. If you don't want that shadow on the backdrop, just think about lines like Dexter, the blood spatter specialist. He always sees these lines and you know that was a blunt object, that was a sharp object. You have to do the same thing with photography. You look at the shadows and you just draw lines, and then you know where you place your lights to make those shadows disappear. So in this case, if you want that shadow to disappear, you simply, if this is the model, you just move your lights that way. Shadow, gone. Shadow, gone. Or shadow, shadow gone. Shadow, shadow gone. Also how you shoot. Shadow gone, shadow there. So it's all about angle of incidence is angle of reflection, or just very simple, just follow the lines. So in this case, again, I think the model's face is underlit, and I can't stress this enough. And also in workshops, it takes so much time to explain this every single time, so it's important, right? It's not something that you think of when you're shooting. And again, I made the same mistakes when I started out. It's always something like, okay, I have this softbox, why should I aim it on the model? Because then the bottom part is too dark, so just fix it in Photoshop. Don't. Always aim the hotspot of the light on the face of the model or where you want the attention to go. And then later in Photoshop, you can always make it a little bit darker underneath or open, or use flags or whatever you want to use, or use light in light. But always the face, that should be the main attraction getter of your shot. So make sure that the light is there. So let's just first place a little bit of a spot on her. So let's just go there. Let's just open exposure a little bit, contrast, highlights, a little bit down. Let's open up the shadows. A little bit more here. Okay, let me see the difference. Much better. Okay, go for effects. In this case, vignetting again. I really like this. Awesome. Okay, now of course we want to make sure that those apps come over and those little water droplets. So what you can do is you can actually go here into your brush, and you probably heard of Dodge and Burn, and you can do something similar. You can go over the shadows. Again, I'm doing it really rough, you guys have to do it better. Just find the shadows and just very simply add some contrast. Lower the shadows maybe, or just open them up. Maybe take out some highlights or add them. There we go. That little bit of contrast, and of course opening up, do you see that? That really changes a lot. Now for the little droplets, that's actually where I would use something called texture or clarity, but that's very bad for the skin. So this is something where you are a little bit in trouble, because you can't make those water droplets stand out, right? Well, not completely. Watch this. If you go for your brush, what you could do, that's a lot of work, is literally go over every single, oh sorry, I think I did something wrong now, but let's just go there, plus, yeah, there we go. I think I destroyed my apps layer, but anyway, you saw the technique. So just some. Go for effects and just add a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity. You see now they stand up just a little bit more, and we have to take that one out. But in all honesty, this is not my personal way of how to do it, but hey, it works. Great. Color wise for this one, I think I would go for something a little bit more reddish for power, or yeah, I think in the shadows more red. And then maybe mix it with a little bit of mid-tones. See where we can go with this. Maybe the highlights into blue. Mid-tones. Let me see where I like it. Oh, I really like this. Nice. Just do that balancing. Now if you are somewhere and you're a little bit stuck like I am now, like I don't really know what I like in this case. And if you are already this far, Now it's sometimes it can help to use a little bit of your color temperature, but just to mix it. As you can see here, now it can work. There we go. Okay, original, my version. I like them both. Now let's say you want that red of that logo back, brush. Let's go here. Let's go for color and just bump that saturation, but most of all just use this to get it really into that red again. I can really make it jump out, as you can see here. So before, after, really nice. Okay. Let me see, there are some questions here. Are you in Adobe apps? Yes. Let me see, who is that? Arben. Hey Arben, welcome to our live stream. Yes, I am in Adobe. I'm actually using an iPad Pro and the Apple Pencil to retouch the images. So they're raw files, and yeah, Lightroom on the iPad is just, let me put it this way. When it started out, I really thought it was a disaster because they called it Lightroom Mobile. And I always told them, like, hey guys, do you remember the times where some people, when traveling, didn't have great internet? And without internet, Lightroom Mobile was actually almost unusable. And they made so much progress because at this point, believe it or not, except for batch renaming, that's something that I really miss, and tethered shooting of course, Lightroom Mobile, or Lightroom CC as it's called now, is actually my preferred way of working on iPad, on my phone, and almost also on the desktop, except in the studio. There I still use Lightroom Classic for tethering and of course for storing all my images, like smart albums, creating keywords. It just works for me better in Classic, but CC absolutely changed the world for me. So, and the iPad Pro with the M1 processor and the great display, awesome. I just wish we could calibrate the display. That's the only thing I'm really missing. Okay, let's go for the next one. This is going to be interesting. So it reminds me a little bit of June, and that's actually what he said, that a little bit like June. And again, when I look at the image, I like the image, I love the backdrop. He actually told me, let me see if you guys can guess this. How did you think he built the backdrop? No? No? I can't hear anything, I'm just doing something. No, it looks a little bit more like we're live, right? Like I'm with you. So, unless that's scary, of course. He actually used paper, and that's how it's supposed to be, guys. Be creative. You can use paper, you can use wrapping paper, you can use old fabrics, whatever you want to use. We're actually filming a class now for Kelby 1. We're actually filming 3 in procession, and it's all about using simple materials, using one prop many ways, and of course using materials like this for the backdrops. And I absolutely love the effect. You can't see it's paper, right? It looks like a stone wall with a desert or whatever. I love it. Let's go for the raw file. Okay, this is the raw file. And there is something about this image that I really like, and that's that line of light over her face. But it also makes it a disaster to retouch. And I'm going to say why. When I look at the shot, it really needs some opening up. It's too dark for my taste. But as soon as I open it up, look at this. The face becomes a little bit too light. And this is, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and aliens or whatever is listening, make sure that when you light something, the balance is right. So when I go back to the original form, I really like that line of light, but everything else is too dark. And in Photoshop or Lightroom or Capture One or whatever software you use, you can't bring that back easily. Well, you can't bring it back, but you have to do it like this. So go for exposure until you like it. And I think this is more than enough. It doesn't have to be a lot. Add some contrast, add a little bit of exposure. There you go. Maybe open up the shadows for the suit, because I really love the suit. Nice. And now I have to do the opposite what I did before. Go for the brush. Let's put it on 17 for now. Just go in the face and just lower the highlights, believe it or not. There we go. Add a little bit of contrast maybe. Okay, this looks okay. Now, I love the backdrop. I can't deny that I like it, but I'm gonna crop it. I'm so sorry. because I want some more attention to my model. There we go. I also love the suit, gonna crop it just a little bit. What I would have loved is again extend the canvas to that side. And you can do that with content aware fill in Photoshop. You can do it with just shooting it in landscape and making the backdrop more wider instead of high. And that's also how movies are shot, right? So if you want to emulate a movie scene, make sure that you shoot it landscape. Okay, image-wise, I absolutely love the suit. So I think the suit and the backdrop should get a lot of extra detail. So let's take a big brush. Boom. And let's just paint everything in. There we go. Awesome. Now take the eraser and just take it out of the face. And now just go berserk on the effects. Go texture 100%, clarity 100%. Look at that. Yes. Don't be shy. Ooh. That's a lot. Okay, let's go for light again and let's now down that contrast and highlights. There we go. Oh my, I really like this. You see how that suit just jumps out when you zoom in? Oh my. Original, yeah, and this one, ooh, nice. Okay, go again for that effect with that vignette. There we go. Now the only thing I have to do is tinting, and I believe I saw the movie a while ago that for this we would actually have to go a little bit towards yellow. A little bit of the desperation look. Maybe add some blue in there in the midtones. That should be interesting. There we go. And add some blending to it. And balance it the other way around. Ooh, like this. And then for the highlights, let's go back for that almost yellowish tint. And of course you can always finish it up with some curves. For example, add a little bit of red and take a little bit of red out the highlights. And with blue the same thing, make it a little bit warmer and on the top a little bit bluer. There we go. And for everything you just go for the white one and you can create some extra contrast. The famous S-curve. And the cool thing about Lightroom, of course, is go to local adjustments, go to that first one, and there we go. You can actually protect the highlights even more and make the face fitting. So before, after. Nice. Like the difference. There we go. Ooh, difficult words. Okay, hey, now that we talked about backdrops, I want to introduce something else to you guys. I already told you this is a show with a lot of news. We had the new tether cables. We have the first real Frank Dorov product, the cable block, and we have something else. Over the years, I started out with photography in our studio, and I absolutely loved working in the studio. I loved seamless paper, and seamless paper for me was it. And sometimes when I got bored, I let Anouk pick up another color, or we went to the store and we just went like, hey, let's take that color, let's take that color. But in the end, it didn't feel satisfying to shoot everything with seamless paper for the very simple reason it was seamless paper, right? And at one point it just bored the freaking hell out of me. So I started doing something else, and also because I had to retouch the backdrop every single time where there were creases in there, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I was going like, isn't there something else, something a little bit more real? And every time when I looked on location, I always found those really nice structured walls, those really structured fences, and everything that had structure. It was just drawing to me. So I decided to hire 2 painters and actually paint our whole studio with different walls. Every time 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters. And the whole studio was before that a little bit white, not really white, but it was whitish. Is that a term, whitish? Anyway. So it was a little bit white, and now every single wall had a different color. Do remember, if you have a small studio and you use reds on the side, that will infect your images because light will reflect. So be sure of that. So anyway, we had all these different walls. And at one point I just thought, like, this is awesome because now I can place my model against the wall and that's great. But in our old studio we had like 8 different sets and we still use seamless. That's great, but you want more. So when we went to our new studio, the first thing I did was all the walls were white. Okay, let's hire the same painters, and now we get about, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8. We've got about 10 different setups, 10 different scenes. But we also thought of something else. Let's make movable walls. So we created walls with wheels and we used wallpaper on it. Costs you a lot of money, a lot of time, and they take up a lot of space. I tried different backdrops which were painted and different backdrops that were printed, and overall I did like them, but also there was a lot of problems with reflections. When you used canvases, the paint would drop out. It would be a terrible disaster if they were in the background system. You roll them off and they were filled with greases. The only thing you could do is roll them up 2 days before, spray them with water. That's a good tip, by the way, if you use those canvases. Spray them with water, let them hang for about 2 days, and they were semi-flat. When I did my workshops in Johannesburg in South Africa, we met up with Charlie from clickpropsbackdrops, and you're going to see Charlie in a second. He's going to introduce something for you guys. And they asked me like, hey Frank, we love your work, we love those backdrops. What are those backdrops? And I said, well, that's my studio. And I immediately said, well, why not do a signature series, and let's call it, you can't have me in your studio, but you can have a piece of my studio in your studio. We all loved the idea, and the signature series was born. At first we only sold our signature series, but during COVID a lot of things changed and a lot of products also changed within our portfolio, and Charlie actually came up with the idea, why not do clickpropsbackdrops in the Netherlands as a distributor. I have to be totally honest, I absolutely love the brands, I love the results you get from those backdrops, and I'm very proud to announce that starting this year we are actually the official distributor also for clickpropsbackdrops in the Netherlands. And who can better introduce you, of course, to clickpropsbackdrops than Charlie, the owner, doing a small photo shoot with a new backdrop they designed. Just look at how it looks.
So Charlie here, we've got a brand new backdrop called Stacked by the Mr. Gary Hill. He's over there. Right. And we're going to check if we can make one backdrop look like 2 backdrops. I've got the most incredible Jenny over here, our wonderful model. Let's see what happens. Hold on a sec. I'm sure you'll agree, one backdrop looks like 2.
Isn't that awesome? Build a set in seconds, and it literally is. Now, they delivered 2 different sets. They delivered Pro Fabric, which reminds me very much of those old canvases, you know, Elefante. And Elefante is the only brand I really know from those old ones, sorry for that. But they make a really big comeback because those are amazing to shoot against, those old patterns. And you can get them really sharp, like for example the Art Botanical, which you've seen me use a lot of times. But you can also get them a little bit more surreal, more abstract, like for example Shins Reclaimed, which you also see me using a lot because I love those too. But in essence, one of the most important things for a backdrop, especially when they are a little bit higher priced, is of course how long can you work with a backdrop. Now a lot of people tell me like, hey Frank, backdrops are really expensive, so why should I spend so much money when I get that seamless? Well, first of all, of course, seamless is seamless. The second thing, however, that's very important in your photo studio is that you need something that also tells a story. It can literally sell your images. If you have a great backdrop, people will come back for that backdrop. This is also why we always advise studios to have at least 3 and rotate them over, let's say, 6 months or a year. So that's one of the most important things. Make sure that you always have something new. But also what's important for me is how it's created. And when I look at the vinyl, I don't see any reflections of my strokes. And I see that a lot with other brands. You place your strokes there and it just reflects back on vinyl. And they don't. So that's one thing. Now Pro Fabric is a material that looks very much like old canvases. It's very thin and it looks absolutely amazing with the pigments. The colors just jump out. And those are actually delivered on a pole, and you can mount them on any backdrop system. So whatever that backdrop system you have, if it's electrical or whatever, you just pull the pole through, or the expanse, and you hang it up and it rolls totally flat down. They also have, and you saw that in the video, ones that go from down and then also a floor piece. I mostly use the 272 by 272s on an electric system so we can easily switch. But behind that quality, I also want something that is handmade, because, well, you know how quality correction is, right? I want people there that literally know for sure that when I spend my money, that I get a backdrop that is literally hand checked. That I know for sure that when I spend that kind of money, that it's the perfect backdrop, and that I don't buy two and two are slightly different. No, I want to have the same print. When I order it again, I want it to have the same. So I want to show you very quickly a small behind the scenes look at Luke. He works at ClickPro Backdrops and he's responsible for your order. Watch this. Isn't it awesome? So I love handmade stuff, and especially, you know, this is one of the things that I love in companies, that they show you the behind the scenes videos. There are so many companies that are a little bit anonymous, right? That they have great products, they promote those products via their dealers, but there are no online videos, and you never see it behind the scenes. It's always polished. With us and with ClickPro Backdrops and also IQwire, you get brands that are a little bit more open, that show you a behind the scenes look and also the humans behind it. And that's something that we try to do, of course. And ClickPro Backdrops does the same thing. They try to show you that it's really made by people who care for what they do. And they're photographers, they're not just businessmen. So ClickPro Backdrops, make sure you check them out. And if you're in the Netherlands, go to our website. So on frankdorov.com you can find everything for IQwire, Triflexion and ClickPro Backdrops. Okay, let's continue, because I still have some other news at the end, but we're gonna save the best for last. Okay, an image, and I know immediately this is by Alison, because the name is there, so yeah. Anyway, so this is by Alison, and somehow Alison always surprises me, because Alison really knows, like Dan, what storytelling does. And a lot of other people in Patreon, by the way, because it's the same group, you know, they steal from each other, they improve, and it's such a nice group where you can... Okay, got it back. I don't know what happened there, but we are back. Okay, so let's continue. Sorry for that, I don't know what happened. Must be some interference. So anyway, when you look at Alison's images, and also from Dan, I already solved it in a week. Okay. So when you look at Dan's images and also from Alison, there is a lot of storytelling there. And you can do storytelling again with tinting or with your models. Now look at the difference when and again, Dan knows me and knows that I mean only the best for him, because he's improved so much. But look at the difference between his image and Alison. Do you see the expression in the model? And sometimes it's the model, right? Sometimes models just don't do that expression. But most of the time you just have to push them and just keep pushing, like, okay, give me a little bit more expression, do a little bit more this. So this is Alison's version, and with Alison I always have a problem. I don't really know how to improve her images, so I just do it differently. So this is the original and this is the raw version. Totally different shot. Personally, I would have given it more space. I think it's very, very close to the bottom, and I don't really like that. So I would have shot it way more down, that I have more room to work with, but for this, let's just do it like this. I would go much closer on them, maybe even do this. There we go. Okay, I am gonna do skin very, very quickly with this one. So let's just do it like this. And you can do it like this, really rough, and then just change to the eraser and just erase everything that you don't want in there. Zoom in, and as I told you, do you see how cool this is? The eraser adjusts to how much you zoomed in. I think this is one of the most genius things about Lightroom. Oh. Because here the eraser is really big, and then when I zoom in, I can literally go over the hairs. I just love it. But hey, I love gadgets too. Who doesn't, right? Okay, no, good enough. Okay, let's go down. Let's let's go for effects. Let's turn texture down, clarity, dehaze, go up and down, build contrast, clarity, texture a little bit back. There we go. Okay, good enough. Done. Let's see the difference. Yeah, cool. Okay, now again, highlights. There we go. Let's protect the highlights because the hands are totally blown out. And as you can see here, I hardly can go back. How did she retouch that? See, it's also blown out. So let me see if I can get it back. So let's go for plus, brush. Let's just try it on one hand. Just to see what happens. No, can't get it back. So then leave it as it is. Ooh, can get it back a little bit at least. Okay, there we go. Nice. Again, hands are blown out, face isn't. Alison, foei. Let's fix that. So let's go for brush. Let's go all the way up. Let's make her face stand out. Oh, by the way, I said Alison foei. But let me check her original retouch. See, she actually lit up the face. Awesome. No foei, Alice. Actually done. Well done. Okay, let's go for a little bit more contrast here. There we go. Open up the shadows. Add some nice vignetting here. I always love vignetting. And hey, that's a personal taste. And let's use dehaze in this case to really make it a little bit more softer and glowy. Because Alison went the dark way, I'm going the bright way. Let me compare. Alison went dark. Okay, then I'm going to go the other way. I would have probably also gone dark, by the way, but because she already did, I don't want to mimic what she did. Let me go for... Let's mix blue with a little bit of green. What will happen there? And then for the highlights, let's go back for a little bit of... Let's just overdo it, because this is going to be so weird and so funky. There we go. I hear strange stuff, but don't worry about it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I want to make it much, much darker. Maybe a little bit of highlight protection. And maybe still take the dehaze out. I don't know. I'm a little bit in doubt about it. Yeah, I think out. And then finish it off with some curves. There we go. And green. I really want the green in the shadows, but nowhere else. I don't like green in the images somehow. It always takes me out. Okay, let's go a little bit for blue. There we go. Before and after. It's not my best work, to be honest, but you see what I mean, right? I'm just experimenting with color. And this is more like a cross-processed look, or not really, but it's like mistreated film. Let me put it this way. It's not how it's supposed to look. But I do think you get the idea, right? Just experiment with those colors. And just keep playing until you like what you see. There we go. And if you're in doubt, just get some of the presets and just go for the presets. Why not? Ooh, love that one. This one, cool. Let's go for that one. And let's just adjust that a little bit. Take the highlights. Ooh, maybe just add a lot of shadows and make it darker. There we go. Reminds me of an album cover of one of those metal bands, like for example After Forever or Evanescence. Dutch. Really like this. It's such a shame that and this is again, if you blow out the highlights, there's no way to get them back, so don't. You can better underexpose a shot like 1 or 2 stops and then pull everything up in Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever, Capture One or Luminar. I have to name all the brands. But don't blow out those highlights. It's such a shame, because look at the image, and I'm so limited to what I can do now because of those blown out highlights. Because when I do this, I absolutely love it. I would love to have this look, for example. But then everything in the hands disappear, and I have to go to brush, I have to go again to, let me see, which one was it? That one. I have to go all the way down. And you never get that nice and right. It's always going to be, well, if you know what I mean. I think that's a shame. But you see, I went a totally different way. See, I went the darker way. I went a more open way. Okay. Are there any questions in the chat room? Because I've showed what I want to show on this computer. We're going to go, of course, now for something else. But before that, I want to show you something. And I don't have a version here. Anyway, can you bring me one of the books, please? Because, believe it or not, going live. Okay, guys, I don't know what just happened. We heard some noise and immediately everything just stopped here, including all the internet. It seems like we have internet back, so let's hope that works. Okay, so we were almost done, but I did want to show you some other stuff. So let me see if that will work without going out again. And can you hear my voice now over YouTube? Ah, awesome. Okay, I'm going to start up Luminar, and I want to show you something. So I'm going to go for screen capture now, and let me just switch over there, and let's hope that works. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so one of the things that I really like about Luminar is that it has a certain workflow. And that workflow is very much aimed at the photographer. So let me just show you how I do it. And let me just go through it for now. You don't see me at the moment, I can't help that. So this is one of the shots we took from Claudia recently. And what we're going to do is we're going to just enhance this. So the first thing I always do is I go here for enhancements. Nice. Then you can go to composition, erase, and light. Now, light is the first thing we want to do. With Luminar, I love to use smart contrast. So let's go for smart contrast there. Okay, I don't need anything in exposure because we already did that. And you can protect the highlights, not interesting. Okay, let's go for structure. We want some really nice structure in the backdrop. There we go. As you can see, it doesn't really affect the face. Let's go for color. A little bit more vibrance. Details. I like medium details up. Just a little bit. Small details, nice for the hairs. The large details I normally don't really touch, but with this backdrop, this is by the way the clickpropsbackdrops red metal. Oh, I just love that name. And let's just sharpen it a bit. There we go. You can always mask this, right, and turn it on and off. And as you can see, it just gives a little bit of an extra pop to the image. I love that. Okay, some vignetting, of course. In all my images, you have a lot of vignetting, or some vignetting at least. There we go. Choose your subject. Subject is here, so I want it over there. And by the way, this was shot with the projector, Lindsay Adler, the Westcott projector. I really love that. It has those blades, and you can do some amazing stuff with it. So really, really nice. Okay. Let's close vignetting, and let's go for the more extreme styling at the bottom. And as you can see here now, the face doesn't look right? It looks a little bit over sharpened. So let's go all the way down, and let's skip some stuff. Let's first go for skin. Because I did use a lot of extra detail, and the reason for this is I wanted to show you how crazy the skin works. This is artificial intelligence skin. Watch this. I'm going to put it all the way up. And we're going to do a little bit of shine removal. Now look at the difference before and after. It's not over the top, and that's what I love about Luminar. Do you see this? It's so subtle, but it's so incredibly cool. And this was with a way, way over sharpened image. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and remember that we put in all that detail, right, in structure. So now we're going to actually use a mask. I'm just going to paint it out of the face. I'm not going to do it everywhere, I just want to show you where, because this will probably, oh, it's okay, it's only 60% of my GPU. So I hope you don't hear any audio delays or whatever, because I'm doing this on the same machine that I'm streaming. Maybe not a wise idea. Okay, cool. There we go, that's much better. Yeah, now you see that there's no skin effect anymore. So let's go for the skin again, and let's turn that off and on. There we go. It takes a lot of power to calculate, but man, that difference is... I hope you can see it on YouTube, but it's a huge difference. Okay, let's go for some more cool stuff. First thing I want to do always is a little bit of high contrast in the highlights. And you can go for over the top, that way, or that way. Yeah, now it's a little bit slower because we're also streaming. And let's go for tinting. Tinting I love to find under mood. And under mood you can choose different LUTs. So for example, I love to go just through them and just see what I like for the image. For example, I really like this. To go for Palm Springs. Love this. All the way up. Contrast. Let's lower the saturation just a little bit. There we go. Go back to the top for light. And just lower our exposure. There we go. So also with Luminar, as you can see before and after, it's the same thing that I do. I don't do a lot of weird stuff with a lot of dodge and burn on the skin or retouching. It's most of the time it's pretty simple, because I believe if you do stuff simple, the workflow will just continue. And the nice thing about Luminar, what I find, if you store this as a preset and you don't do any masking, but you just put the skin on, the nice thing is it will find the arms, it will find the face, it will find the body. Even with glamour photography, it will not hit the lingerie or it will not hit the clothing, it will only do the skin. Now Adobe has something similar in Photoshop via AI. And although I love the Adobe products, especially now with the AI filters, it's absolutely amazing. The thing that I don't like about Photoshop and the AI filters is that it only takes the face. So not the hands, not the arms, not the body, only the face. And that's for skin retouching for me is a no-go. You have to do the whole body. And that's what Luminar does amazingly. So during professional imaging, actually, we met up with Luminar and we are offering you guys a huge discount. If you go to Luminar on the website, so Skylum, and you order a Neo or Luminar AI, and personally I use Luminar AI, but you can also use Neo, that's the new version, and it has like this really cool thing with dust on your sensor, it removes automatically, power lines, it removes automatically. It's an insane cool software. Use the code FrankD and you will get a nice discount, so make sure you do that. Okay, let me see something else. Oh, I have some really cool news for you guys. So let me grab something. I'm not gonna touch anything else anymore, and it stopped raining, so I think something got hit or something. Let me see where we put it. There we go. Now, as you guys know, I wrote different books, and one of those books was only available, two of those books actually were only available in Dutch. And so many guys of you asked, Frank, when are you going to do this book in English? I always told you guys, well, it's a little bit difficult now with book translations and everything, and the market for books is totally different at the moment. But you guys wanted the book so much so, we decided to translate it ourselves. And the cool thing is that actually captures me. Believe it or not, if you let somebody translate a book, there's always this chance that they don't get every nuance right. Now, I wrote Mastering the Model Shoot in English. This book I wrote in Dutch. And we translated it together with our American friends. So thank you so very much, Allison, Gabe, and Mark. They really did a good job. There was a normal cough, by the way. Nothing others. Don't look anything behind it. So we worked with them together and got the perfect English version, and then I started making mistakes in the book, so it was actually more like me. And today I can introduce to you guys, and it's also available on Amazon. Yes, it's here. The book Speedlight Magic. Everything you want to know about the Speedlight. It's a pretty thick book. You can get it now on Amazon, and Anouk, just a few minutes ago, made this video for you guys, because this is all brand new. So go out on Amazon and buy the book and watch this trailer. So go online on Amazon.com and search for Frank Doorhoff, The Magic of the Speedlight Magic. I'm 100% sure you're going to love the book. I wrote everything I know about speedlights in the book, a lot of lighting diagrams, a lot of accessories. There are several friends of mine in the book that did a whole guest piece, like Joe McNally, Rick Salmon, and of course also our Dutch friends, Martin Hogeboom. So without any doubt, get the book. You're absolutely going to love it. We also have a free, sorry, not a free, of course. We also have the PDF and EPUB versions. You can get them on our web store. So go for this address. And that's also where you can find, by the way, the IQwire, clickpropsbackdrops, what a name. And of course also our preset packs. So just go to frankdoorhoff.com/shop. We totally revamped the whole website for the shop. So normally we didn't have a shop, a lot of stuff changed. So now we do have a shop, and you guys asked for it so many times. Only in the shop you will find the products that I really use and also advise you guys to use. We don't sell anything that I don't use myself. So you find K&F Concept, Black Mist filters there. You find everything that we use ourselves, except of course the strobes. So check that out. And I think that's it for today. I'm so very sorry that the stream just stopped. We heard this noise and then everything got black here. And now everything is back. So I hope nothing damaged. But anyway, we finished Digital Classroom this way. Sorry for the interruption. Thank you so very much. Leave comments below if you want to see something in Digital Classroom. Maybe you have an idea like, hey Frank, can you do product photography? Or hey Frank, can you do whatever kind of photography, dinosaur photography, whatever. I don't know even if you can shoot dinosaurs, but you know what I mean, right? Just leave comments below what you want me to do. And thank you so very much for watching, guys. Stay safe, and especially get the book, and of course, get IQwire, click-prop backdrops, and the triflexion system. Tomorrow, we're going to release a video about IQwire in English and in Dutch. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. Stay safe. Hit that bell notification if you want to be updated. And of course, like, subscribe, and tell other people about the channel so we can grow.